Yes, in the second row. Hi, good morning. Congratulations for the film. And in general, from the remarks that we've been listening to, when the film has been taken in very well, the idea of the transformation of Nellie's character maybe refers to the transformation of Vertigo and the relationship between Scotty and Madeleine, how she comes back from the dead, and perhaps it's a story of forgiveness and love. We're not too sure how it finishes. We're not too sure whether you left the ending open on purpose, and whether that idea of forgiveness is not too clear. Could you make any remarks as regards to this issue? Well, I am quite slow in reacting at times, so therefore I'm going to try to answer all of your questions. I'm not too sure whether the comparison with Vertigo is correct. It does tell the story of a woman, but I always thought, or I've always thought, that in this film, in the film Vertigo, she wants to transform the woman into Marilyn Monroe in the film. I'm not a big fan of Vertigo, nevertheless. Unfortunately, I'm here on my own because one of the actresses that was going to come along is still on the plane. Another actress has a theatre premiere and she had to finish learning her dialogues. So therefore, I'm here in the face of you at the risk of running the danger of something happening to me. But nevertheless, as we Germans are used to losing the war, and we're not worried about this. So I'm here for whatever may occur. You talked about the issue of the forgiveness of Nellie. She doesn't know whether to forgive her husband or not, her character. I would like to know that the actress is extraordinary. She's always on the verge of breaking down and about to confess. We don't know sure whether she loves or hates or forgives her husband. I'd like you to talk about how you've worked upon this within the script and also in the performances of the actors. Thank you. Well, I've not written this down on the script completely. I think I had to allow the actors and actresses to be able to develop the plot even further. Nellie, throughout the entire film, appears in hospital without a face at the beginning, and you can see in another scene how she's almost got to learn to eat with a knife and fork and to listen to music again. She's got to learn to be alive once again. She's got to learn to meet men and to meet men and women. There's a development of her character throughout the entire film. And Nina, Auschwitz is where she was born in a very perverse way, the truth be said. I don't believe that the subject matter is forgiveness at all. This is something which has already happened. I think it's confronting the idea that the love that she feels and she's refound and rediscovered, to see whether he lives or doesn't live. It has a lot to do with the adults. When we become in adulthood, things that were very beautiful in adolescence and when we were kids lose their magic when we get older. Hi, good afternoon. I saw the film, and one of the main subjects, if not is to revindicate the oneself, because at the beginning of the film, they offer her a different face, and she says, no, why was I going to do this? So therefore, it's all based upon this. I think I would like you to talk about this issue a bit, if you could be so kind. Do you think the film could have been, the atmosphere could have been made, it could have been done in the post-war and not in the Second World War and so on? It could have been set in another time? Well, it would be another film. Obviously, we could tell it in another period of time or in another setting. But I think the concentration camp issue is so definitive, so brutal, and that obliges Nellie to see that there's a before and an after, before the concentration camp and after the concentration camp. And so therefore, that can't be found so drastically in any other period of time in history. Perhaps in in a terrorist attack of some nature, but everything of what the Nazis organized that we know, we've seen different photographies and images and so on and so forth, but I don't believe that there is any parallelism in the story at this level. And as regards reivindicating the I, the oneself, well, I believe that the reconstruction of the I, or oneself, it was a moral issue. It was complicated for us to find a balance when we were shooting the film, and when we were looking at the logbook. It's very difficult. It's as if in Germany all of a sudden a horrible storm had taken place and we had to reconstruct everything from zero. And it's very, very difficult to explain this. We've done it through the use of music, but there are many things. That reconstruction of the I has a parallelism in the reconstruction of the country. We didn't know how to tell it all, whether we had to start, everything had to start from zero. And she starts from zero in that laboratory, which is in the basement where the husband puts her. It's very sad. It's a reconstruction of the I, but it's sad at the same time. The final scene, it's always complicated how to finish the film, but it's a very powerful moment. It's a moment in where she is herself again, but she doesn't belong to anyone. And that's what we wanted to achieve, that she doesn't belong to her friends at all. In all of that, those scenes in the basement where she's starting to create herself, when she has to confront the whole mourning of those people that have died, the people or the things that aren't anymore, when she reconstructs herself at the end. That's the moment that I most like about the film. Perhaps it sounds a bit pathetic, but if I drink a bit of water, it might sound better in the next question or the answer. I'm not some brilliant at times in answering questions, and plus, I'm a smoker, and I've been waiting for the whole film, which is a long film, till we could have a break for me to have a smoke, but they didn't stop, so therefore I'm a bit of an addict. Simultaneous is working very well. I'm saying stupid things and you're laughing almost at the same time. This is marvelous. Good morning, first of all, congratulations, and thanks for a film like this. I'm one of the people that liked it very much, and I liked the ending very much. I coincide completely with what you've just said. I didn't know that how it was going to finish. I was completely overwhelmed and astonished and surprised. I thought it was perfect, the ending. Congratulations. There are three pieces of information and just details, really, that you could talk about. I imagine there's an historic study and documentation of the post-war era, and the reconstructions. Are they as perfect as we can see in the film? Because we know it's a woman who's got a lot of economic means available to her, but I like the way the reconstruction of her face and figure. There's another element that I'm not too sure whether to explain. The servants recognize her so easily vis-a-vis the husband who doesn't want to believe it. I'm not too sure whether that's a detail that doesn't fit in, or does it have any type of reasoning and explanation. And finally, the title, Phoenix. Couldn't be there something more significant, because it's the name of the discotheque as well. It could have been anything. And congratulations, by the way, quite sincerely. I'm going to start from the last question. Phoenix was a mistake. The truth is, when I started to work upon the film, I didn't have the rights of the novel on which it's based upon, and so therefore one of the people in my team who's sitting down here said, we can't use the original title of the book, so therefore let's invent something, and let's count to 10, and so the first word which comes to our mind, we counted from 10 to 1, 10 to 0, and someone said Phoenix, and that's why we've used it. It was like almost a mistake, or randomly. Then we finally got the rights to the book, but we'd already used Phoenix, so that's what we've used. It's a metaphor which is completely mistaken. Nelly is not a phoenix. The Nazis wanted to eliminate from the face of the earth what they believe were weak races, and to create a superior race of people, and Nelly is not that at all. And the Nazis wanted a phoenix that would emerge from the ashes. We put Phoenix in the name of the cabaret where they meet each other again. But you are right that Phoenix is not the truth. We said probably the suitable title to the film. And vis-a-vis the other questions, I've got to try to remember them. And if I start by the end, I never remember the first questions. Let's see. The reconstruction of her figure, her face, whether that historically was also done, and also the recognition of the servants. They recognize her so quickly, vis-a-vis her husband, who doesn't recognize her that quickly. Yes, the husband doesn't recognize her, but I have a friend who says, and he's a criminalist liar, and he says the person that are guilty, they see history, and so therefore what happens to them, the way they contemplate history, they don't recognize reality, they make it up. And I've researched through this friend of mine, and it's true that people who are guilty or feel guilty, and I'm talking about people who are in a trial or in a court case, don't recognize reality because it doesn't correspond with what they've had to create that reality for themselves in order to justify themselves. Yes, as regards to Berlin and the construction of that period. The post-war Berlin has something which is romantic and heroic at the same time. For example, all of these reconstructions that have been made digitally of old footage, we can see how the tram was driving down the streets that were destroyed, and it seems to me that there are images which are really beautiful, even of the fascist bunkers and all of of that period. And for example, if we look at the modern Unterdüster of Frank Stauter, for example, the murderers are amongst us, the assassins are amongst us, I think is the name of the film. And obviously I've not made an exact construction of that period. I want more worried about the reconstruction of Nellie's life and the face. Yes, I agree with you. I'm talking about the recreation of her face, the reconfiguring, the reconstruction of her face, of Nellie's face. That's what I was referring to more. I've always thought that we should not do it from the outside. Why? Because in many films, sometimes through makeup, we try to reconstruct a face which is destroyed or disfigured with bits of clotted blood. But we didn't want to use this. We wanted to reduce the face to the minimum. And that's why the first moment that she sees her face is that moment in which there is a broken mirror, but she doesn't see herself until the husband doesn't find her, doesn't say that she looks like his wife. It's as if that was the moment in which the muscle that has been destroyed regenerates all of a sudden because she feels recognized. We didn't want to do anything based upon the use of makeup. We didn't think that was too interesting for a film like this. Hi, congratulations for the film. I liked it very much. And I'm glad that you're participating in the official section of this film festival. As you mentioned, this film is based upon a book, and I would like to know to what extent you've modified or changed it, or is it a free version of the book or not? And my other question deals with the dedication, who it's dedicated to a person who's not very well known, not even in Germany. It's a person, Mr. Wittenmann died many years back. He was a lawyer, and nothing similar, no reference to lawyers is made in the film. So therefore, what's the historical background and why you've dedicated the film to this man, or whether it has something to do with the concentration camps or whatever? Well, my memory is horrible today. Well, let's see. In the novel, dates back, well, it's a novel, it's an epistolary novel, and it's completely different to what you see in the film. It's a woman who lives in France and goes to Switzerland to do a cosmetic surgery because she wants to look beautiful, and she wants to achieve a Jewish nose, which is the only link to her story. Also, she's got a daughter, and she meets the husband of her daughter, and she finally goes to bed with him, and she finally commits suicide by using gas. But this story has nothing to do with the story in the film, and in the book, that is to say. And so therefore, as you can see, it's a free version of the novel. In Germany, in 1954, there was no possibility back then of achieving another nationality apart from German nationality, where the woman in the book has a French and Swiss nationality. She has a double nationality. And we started the negotiation process in order to buy the rights to the novel in Frankfurt, in the book fair, which is held in Frankfurt. And we wanted to combine this with all the texts that we have available of in Germany of the survivors of the concentration camps. So therefore, what's based upon in the book is the entire reconstruction of her face and so on and so forth. So therefore, what it also has in common is how one can one comes to feel. It's a very sorrow, and it's a complicated process of this person. There's no people that are in a concentration camp. It's very difficult for them, and even in the Democratic Republic, where they were recognized earlier on, were they able to be compensated in any way? These people that suffered that moment. It's very interesting to see all of those documents where the victims talk directly, where we can recognize that so-called shock that they've undergone, and that awakens empathy even nowadays in this film. When we showed students, because that story, history is a long way away, they continue to feel very affected by it. And as regards the dedication, this person is a very important in the German Republic. Perhaps it's not understood in Spain or in San Sebastian.
Okay. Just one moment, please.
Dann ich. Herzlichen Glückwunsch.
Das ist auch Deutsch.
Well, congratulations for the film. I would like to ask you for someone who's not here, which is Hoss, who I miss very much. I expected her to be very much more active in the film, and it seems that Nina Hoss normally works more in more ensemble pieces, and here she takes all the weight of the film, and I would like to I thought she was going to be here. How that work was, I'm not too sure whether you can tell us something about that. Nina, I told her 2 years ago that she is a teamwork player, and I thought that she had other other things that I could draw from her. I said, I can't work like this. This isn't the way to work. She always protests a lot and complains. But Nina is a woman who is frankly very intelligent. She's an actress. She's an exceptional actress. And during the film, what happens is that I identified myself with her husband in the film, obviously a man who's shooting a film with a woman who has this struggle, and with the husband I identified myself with him. And undoubtedly I had to be very careful so that the identification that I felt with him, I didn't want it to be an antagonist approach vis-a-vis the actress. I managed to turn her into like a tango dance by Rombok, where we all move together. And the only thing I can say is that she's the best. How did you find the Speak Low song? Because I think it's a very interesting song. I had another song in mind at the beginning by Johnny Lowe. I was looking for a song in which Johnny, there was one called Johnny, It's Your Birthday, But all of a sudden I heard Speak Low, and when I heard Charlie Hayden's version, I thought, this is the right song for the film. We rehearsed several times with both songs, and we changed the arrangements of the song, and 2 or 3 days before finishing the shooting of the film, in Wikipedia, I almost said WikiLeaks, I almost got it wrong. In Wikipedia, I saw the story of about the song, and it's a story of Pygmalion, and the truth is, and that's what the film is about to a certain extent, or a little. As of this song, a musical was made, and where there's this idiot, a man who's married, and he wears 2 rings, and he wants to get married, and he's looking for a woman, and he's always taking these 2 rings with him, and he's offering marriage to whatever woman comes along. And he's a woman who he meets at a museum, and coincidence is a woman who's always been expecting someone to ask her to marry, looking to get married. So for the museum, it's the encounter of 2 hopes, and after 2 months she realizes that he's a complete idiot, and she doesn't know what to do with that love, that it doesn't correspond to the person who she's married. And so therefore that's part of what also happens in our film. This time I think I've answered the question correctly. Over here. At a given moment in the film, Nellie's character says, "I don't exist anymore." I want to know whether that phrase summarizes the most crude or raw content of the film, and whether this connects a little to the fragmentation of the identity of postmodernity, where it seems that nobody seems to connect with oneself anymore. And it's also, you've talked about Vertigo, you've talked about Pygmalion. When was it clear in your mind that that structure could work, the Pygmalion, Lord Feiko, and there's something Frankenstein-like as well in this film? It's true. The Bride of Frankenstein is one of the films I had in mind, and I saw again when I was shooting the film, because that moment in which Frankenstein is constructs a beautiful wife from the body of a prostitute, and awakens this being who he falls in love with the doctor and not the monster Frankenstein. It also takes place in a laboratory in a basement, just like our film. Once again, it's another film in which men are like hidden craftsman who tries to make a woman but made to measure, or the women that men dream of. What was the question again? I wanted to ask you whether what Nellie says. She said, "Yes, that's right. Now I remember. Thank you. Yes, that's right. Thank you." No, I think it's quite a brutal and straightforward phrase. What she says, sentences. She's looked at the ruins in her house. She's seen a face that's not hers, but that's the one she's wearing, and she's with a friend that can't return her identity, and she's hanging out to construct a new identity. And the worst moment, if you ask me what's the worst moment in the film, and that is when she takes the veil off and her husband doesn't recognize it. That's the worst moment in the film. Hi, good morning. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for the film, and congratulations. I would like to firstly reflect upon the following. First of all, I'm surprised how a musician is unable to recognize the voice of who his wife was, and perhaps it's got something to do with perhaps he was never in love with her, that he knows her friends a bit more from what vis-a-vis the reactions they have on the train when she arrives, than what he's got in front of him, which is his wife. That's on the one hand. But Spanish musicians recognize voices, perhaps. I would like to know, quite simply, out of curiosity, Nellie's wife, is she in love with Nellie, or why? Because she controls all her life as of that moment. Well, first of all, as regards to the voice and whether he's recognized it or not when he meets her, I think there are many issues that arose in the script, and we didn't do it on purpose, but that have developed as we did the shooting of the film. There's almost a Cinderella-like issue whether we try her shoe on, and we will try to make sure the shoe fits no matter if it does or not. There's a scene in which he gives her shoes from Paris, and he's hoping that it doesn't fit, and he wants to make it fit whatever way it can. And then as regards to the music is a symbol. It's a symbol of abandonment. And the voice, when she starts to sing, is when she recovers her soul. I think that this scene is going to survive 100 years in the history of film, because as the way she sings and throughout the song she recovers her own soul. I think that's marvelous. If his wife, well, her friend is in love with Nelly. Well, sorry, yes. First of all, I want to clear up that both actresses are not a couple, by the way, to start off with. But the truth is they get along very well, and they have a lot of beers together, and they are together quite a lot, and that makes us think that these two women who are always together there may be a couple, but that is not the case. I don't leave that too clear in the film. I don't discard it, but I don't affirm it. There's a friendship. There's a woman who's very controls all of the passions. She's also a lawyer, and the other woman is she's a bit lost. She's a piano player, she's a pianist, she's a singer, she's an artist, and she does everything that her friend doesn't do, that is to say, to follow her passion, her dream. And so I believe there's a contrast in the two figures, which is very interesting from a cinematographic standpoint. Elena is very interesting, and perhaps I might do a short or a feature film, but not too long, about that character. Any further questions, please? Yes? What I think is interesting, as in the previous film, Barbara, and like in this film, uses a style which is very cold, or apparently very cold, without any great dramatic moments, but the emotion nevertheless is quite intense and very powerful and goes in crescendo. It grows throughout the film. How did you work upon this?
Ja, das stimmt. Nein, das ist...
Well, yes, you're right. I don't know. Before, I'd always made films against other films. One studies cinema said, I don't want my film to be similar to any other film or to any film. I've lately focused more upon rehearsing with the actors, with the cast. I didn't have a very closed storyboard or a script. I wanted everything to flow, and I wanted the film to be more alive, so to speak. I don't know whether that coldness that appears in my films, I think what you've noticed is probably concentration. I think I work in a much more concentrated. I see how the actors and actresses perform and how they convey. I know there's intensive work there, and I want to reflect that intensity with lightness, in a light manner. I'm not too sure whether I've explained myself clearly, because this is my artistic manifesto here, so to speak. Well, if there aren't any further questions, yes, there's another one here in the front row. Well, as regards to your last answer, you said that beforehand you made films against other films, and it seems to me at times that there are other German films like Bunker in Germany in the last 10 years. These are films that have been made upon the past history of the country, and they've turned it into a subject almost like entertainment. The war, concentration camps, the Holocaust, everything has been turned into like an entertainment issue. And I'm under the feeling or I have the feeling, that this film is a film that goes against those films. At least we don't recognize it here, but in Germany, it seems to me that they are going against this wavelength of films. I would like you to explain this, if possible. Thank you. Well, I don't believe that we should make films against other films or against anything, the truth be said. In this film, I didn't have the feeling at any moment that I was fighting against these types of films. I do have images of those films that you mentioned. There are a couple of German films that sometimes, the typical question that I've always asked, what two films would you take to a deserted island? And sometimes I would take a foreign film and a German film, because sometimes one needs national references at times. And there's only one film that I think carries out a good retrospective. It's a very old film. I'm not too sure whether it's a very old film that I saw on TV for the first time, and it's similar to The Kleine Pflanze by Bolli. It's a film which should be preserved. It's a 1950s, I think it's a 1952 film, and I think later on in the 1960s, films like those films were not made in the 60s. So therefore I think we've gone through years of the death of cinema practically, and I believe Alex de Stenten of Wim Wenders this is an interesting film, by the way. What type of German men still move throughout the world? What is romanticism for them? What makes them feel passionate about things? And Maria de Bruin by Fassbinder is also a film which is extremely important, and it's compulsory that you should see it if you want to make films. But one likes to leave this tradition to one side, and that's how perhaps Phoenix, my film, has emerged. I do recognize, not quotes, but a vision of the world in Phoenix which does stem from this tradition of these types of films, at least. It's an historic period piece, so therefore you've got the problems that respond to this genre. You want to tell a story, a current story, a story of today, but it's set within a period which has finished and is not today. So therefore there are things that are explained again, and there are things that are left in the background, because we suppose that everyone knows the story. So therefore, how do you decide as a director what parts of the story you're going to tell and what parts of the story are you going to leave out? That's the way I always do it. There are people who have seen the film and have said that it seemed as it dated back to 1977. And that's to say, it was set in 1977, albeit we were talking about an historic moment, but we're so infected about current affairs, there are many times that the look of the film doesn't reflect exactly that moment in time. So therefore, the metaphor that I use is that we're shooting a present-day film where the ghost of the past is walking upon in the scenes. And there has to be a present-day vision. There has to be a current and present-day lighting, albeit we're talking about a story which is set in the 1940s. When Nina is riding on a bike with her husband, those images are also present-day images, but the bicycle is an old bicycle. It's a way of combining the past and the present. We do have the wardrobe, it's historical, and we try to make sure that the bicycle and other details and attrezzo belong to that period in time. But we didn't want the film to be a film that slips through different... We wanted it to be a present-day film upon an historic period of time. And sometimes this has been told to us very correctly. Sometimes I've said that our film is too modern in the formal sense of the word. That is, it's like the Last Picture Show. If we are telling a story of the 1937 and we are telling a story about Vietnam, but we're telling it now, or we're telling a story, a Western film, Western in Texas. You have to feel, you've got to feel the time in which that film was shot, and what's the vision of that moment vis-a-vis that moment in the past that you're filming. Thank you very much. There's another question as regards this ghost of the past who is walking through the set into the present. There is a scene in which she wants to, she gives him a bridge, but he doesn't cross the bridge. What he does is to continue his own story without undertaking his responsibility. And that's what the generation of the 1940s, 50s and 60s have done, more or less, in Germany. They didn't want to undertake their responsibilities. They just simply wanted to go ahead without looking back to the past. And that is not a ghost of the past. It is something which is quite present. And in fact, in Germany now we've got National Socialist people that want to go, that are becoming more and more important. Yes, you're right in what you've just said. In this scene, there is a moment in which Nina tells him she is starting to realizing that she's enjoying what's going on, the game. There's almost it's something perverse between the victim and him, and Nelly sees it quite clearly. It's like the good cop and the bad cop in the LA Police TV series. It's a bit like this. They are playing the good cop and the bad cop. And she asks that question. She opens up the possibility, opens up a bridge, but she's enjoying herself the most. That's when she says, but this woman has just left a concentration camp. She can't appear with a red dress as if nothing had happened. On the one hand, she's giving him the possibility to cross the bridge, but at the same time, she's enjoying the person, that victim and non-victim situation. He's as if he hadn't heard it. He acts as if he hadn't heard it. I'm fascinated by all of the museums at that period in time, but I'm concerned about, we've fitted it all into one museum, but we want to hear the reality. We react like he does. Well, poor woman, she's been in a concentration camp, but let's turn the page and look how beautiful she looks now. And so nowadays we should have to continue to talk about this. We talk a lot about German football, and we don't talk about something which is so important, that important in the story. That's what I try to reflect in that scene. They don't listen. None of the two are listening to each other. And without empathy, there's no cinema. And that's the problem. And what would have happened if he at that moment would have listened to her and he would have crossed the bridge? Well, that's a very good question. Both of the actors, who are very intelligent, the actor and the actress, asked me, what would happen if in this scene, the actor, that's the male character, says, okay, you're right in what you're saying. And so therefore he would accept that he's the traitor and the ridiculous and weak traitor he is, but that would be the beginning of his redemption and salvation. If he had have taken, if she would have been obliged to take off that bubble of love that protects her, and which she wants to hug her husband, and I don't care whether he thinks I'm some other woman, but that bubble of love would have burst all of a sudden, and he allows her to survive in the moment he doesn't cross the bridge, because that bubble of love enables her to survive. But in turn, it would have been the salvation of both of them, and the ending of the film would have been undoubtedly different. But I think it's right in that way, because that's the reaction that we've seen in society, to not want to listen. Any further questions? Yes? Hey, I want to smoke a cigarette. Well, congratulations for the film, and I wanted, could you resolve this curiosity in the shooting? I think the character portrayals have been excellent by the actors, and the last scene, for my taste, was one that impacted me the most, caused the biggest impact on me in the whole film. Was that the last scene that was filmed? Because for the actors, it's got to be very strange to record the ending or to shoot the ending and then go back into the script later on. I would like to know how that was. The order of the shooting of the film, was it done chronologically or not? I was always thinking about the stress that we've undergone in the shooting of the film, because I thought that we had to enjoy ourselves during the shooting of the film. I thought that after the shooting of the film we should go and watch a football match or to have a few drinks together, because these characters are so deeply prepared and elaborated that they need so much concentration that just to think that the actor and the actress were going to go home with the character on their shoulders and to go keep thinking about it, I thought it was awful. We decided that very early, after 20 or 30 days of shooting the film. Nina, the musician who plays instead of Roland, and myself, we were thinking, and we decided, yes, that the final scene was going to be like that. We did the rehearsal, and the rehearsal worked out perfectly. The music that was played during the improvisation at that moment was the one that we used in the film, and the voices also of Nina. Nina sings the song, the actress, so it's original at the same time. What we did add subsequently was the general image shot of all of the friends that are listening. And I think that we did another take, and the final editing took almost more than 9 hours, but the song, for us, it was quite clear the only possible ending was that ending that we used. And because otherwise all the rest would have ended up being absolutely stupid, a stupidity. It's quite clear she leaves and everybody else stays, and the actors are also agreed upon this. She sings, and during the song she grows, she becomes an adult, and she leaves. And during the song, you've got to observe this. You've got to see how she works upon herself and how she re-emerges within her own body and how she starts to breathe. At the end of the song, there's a moment where she's still dead, and all of a sudden you see that she comes to life and comes alive again. And that's why that we had set that from the beginning. But despite everything, the shooting of that scene was very difficult. It could have been much easier, but that's not the case. Thank you very much. Thank you.